So this is it. I got fired from Chuck E. Cheese. Well, that was a long time ago. I got fired when I was 15 years old. My name is Alan, and welcome to my arcade. Let's go.
How old were you when you first started playing arcade games?
I was probably 10 or 11 years old, 1979, 1980, when arcade games first came out.
Where did you play?
First game was at the mall, I believe. There was a Space Invaders machine and an Asteroids machine like this one. And I didn't have a quarter to play, so I would just watch people play as much as I could and hopefully get a quarter from my parents and give it a try.
What was your job at Chuck E. Cheese?
So I got a job at Chuck E. Cheese. It was opening in Toronto. It was a brand new company only in the States. And I heard that if you worked at Chuck E. Cheese, you could play all the video games you wanted for free before your shift or after your shift. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I'd work there for free.
And why did you get fired?
Well, when you get a job at Chuck E. Cheese, everybody has to start working in the kitchen, making pizzas, then dishwashing, then bussing tables. And every week I'd ask them, can I work in the arcade now? Can I work in the arcade? And it was probably 6 months to a year, and I finally got the arcade job. And when I got the arcade job, I wouldn't work. I would just play video games all the time. So after so many warnings, obviously I got fired.
And what was the first game you owned?
The first game I bought was Space Invaders. I always said I want to have Space Invaders in my kitchen. If I'm going to be eating lunch or whatever in my kitchen, and I want a Space Invaders machine here, like the one over here.
And how many games do you have now?
I think I probably have close to 50, mostly all the classic arcade games and some of the newer pinball machines.
And how long have you been working on this collection?
I started this collection in the mid-90s, so going on about 25 years. One game at a time, buying them from all across North America, bringing them home to my garage, refurbishing them, changing all the T-molding, cleaning them all up, putting all new LED bulbs, putting new control panel overlays, new switches, new dials, sometimes new monitors. It's never ending. Sometimes a paint job, sometimes decals.
And last but not least, what's your favorite game?
My favorite game is Robotron. It's over here. I'll have a look. This is Williams Robotron. Probably my favorite game because it's the hardest game probably ever made. I would never play it because I couldn't afford to play it because you'd be done in about 30 seconds. But thankfully now that I own it, I can play it all day. I actually got pretty good. I wanted my arcade to not only have the look of a classic arcade, but the feel of a classic arcade. And the only way to do that is have the machines work on real money. So in my arcade, all the machines work on real quarters. When I was a kid, maybe you only had 4 quarters would last you the whole day. In my arcade, the quarters are endless. My kids will never know what it feels like to be down to your last quarter knowing that once you use this quarter, your day's done. Games in my collection. This is Atari Crystal Castles. Probably 1980, 1981. The object is you're the bear, you have to pick up all the jewels, not get eaten by any of the things. And away you go. Of course, Nintendo Punch-Out, which needs a quarter. All the games in this arcade work on quarters to get the feel like you're in an arcade.
Class Joe. Fight. Left. Right. Right. Body blow. Body blow. Body blow. Right.
Moving on to Millipede, which was the second edition from Centipede. Millipede. Again, you gotta shoot the Centipede. Don't get eaten by the spider as it comes down. Then we have the 2 track and field and hypersports, part 1 and part 2. All the Olympic events. This was a huge hit in 1983, I believe it was. You have to go through all the Olympic events, tapping your thing as fast as you can. That's part 1. Part 2 came out a couple years later, and the continued part 1, but with different events. Starts off with swimming. Moving on to my Williams collection, one of the coolest games ever, Sinistar. A very popular Williams game, but rarely would you see this in an arcade. Again, a very hard game, something I wouldn't be able to play too often because you wouldn't last. Of course, Joust. I'm not sure the order of what the Williams games released. Joust, another cool game. You are the guy, you ride the, whatever you want to call it, the flying, and you joust with the other ones. Moving on to Defender. Of course, the coolest game ever. One of Williams' first. Your job to defend the planet. And of course, my favorite, Robotron. All the Williams games, completely different feel. Everything's different about them. So moving on, when you collect arcade games, obviously you can't buy every game because you don't have the room. And some games, while you like them, you don't like them enough to spend thousands of dollars to buy them. So an option is always to buy like a multi-game cabinet. Cabinets like this, you can load up every single game. It's the exact same game. Obviously the feel is not the same because it's not the same control panel. But if you want to play a game like Frogger, and you take quarters, it's the exact Frogger, same screen, same sounds, but a little different feel to it. And like I said, an option instead of buying every game out there. Dragon's Lair 2. Dragon's Lair 1 came out in the first place for this game. Incredible. Obviously, I couldn't play it. You'd like to be over in 10 seconds your game. Number 2 came out years later. Again, I never played it. I can only watch. And the difference between part 1 and part 2 is this game is actually continuous. It never stops. If you've ever been in an arcade, of course you've seen Paperboy. One of the funnest games out there. I think it needs a cooler. A fun game. Everybody liked Paperboy. You're on a bicycle delivering papers through the community, and all the obstacles are in your way. Kids riding skateboards and doing all kinds of things. Breaking people's windows and things like that. All in all, fun game. One of the first games ever, Asteroids. Again, very cool game. This game all day. And then Asteroids Lux, part 2 to Asteroids. A little bit different color, different feel, a few different things. I don't think this game was a huge hit in the arcade, but if you have part 1, you have to have part 2. And Tron, anybody knows the movie Tron? A highly collectible game, highly valuable game. And this one is in pristine condition. I couldn't even put a price on it. It's priceless. Centipede. Again, one of the original arcade games, a real classic. To see one in this good a shape after so many years, very rare. Incredible game. And again, another Williams multi-game. So if you don't want to have, like, I would never buy a Bubbles or a Splat or a Stargate. I didn't like the games that much. So an option is always the Mega Williams. While pinball machines have been around longer than arcade games, some arcades only had video games, some only had pinball machines, but as the years went on, every arcade had both. So if you played classic arcade games, of course you played pinball. Some, pinball machines, some games are just instant hits when they come out, and everyone has a theme. If you like the theme of the game, they're very collectible. It's just personal preference or just some games. So I have a Playboy 35th anniversary, very old game, very collectible. The Getaway, again, if you like cars, it has a Lamborghini on there. It's all about, running red lights and getting away. Great game. Some of the newer games that have come out, Batman. Of course, if you're a fan of Batman, you have to have the pinball machine. A huge upgrade to machines 30 years older than that. One of my newer games, Wizard of Oz. Again, if you like the movie, you like the theme, how could you not have the Wizard of Oz? It's fully digital, it's highly collectible. I mean, look at the game, it's spectacular. It actually feels as if you're watching the movie when you play. And if you like music, some of maybe your favorite bands, for example, the Rolling Stones, I like them obviously enough to buy the machine. And again, great machine. When you play the machine,
The greatest rock and roll band in the world, the Rolling Stones.
again, the games have come along so much over the years. It feels like you're at a concert. And again, if you have a Batman, you have to have a Spider-Man that goes with it. Again, you watch cartoons when you're a kid, and this is what you watch, and then here it is. And then they have games out for TV shows, like The Sopranos, a TV show I liked a lot. It's actually a fantastic game to play. It's probably 25 years old, and it's still one of my favorite games today. Addams Family, highest selling pinball machine of all time. I think over 25,000 units were made. Not too many are left because they were out on arcade routes, and they're so beaten up. This is a pristine condition Addams Family. And then, of course, as a fan of The Simpsons, Simpsons Pinball. This is the original Simpsons Pinball from the 80s. Very cool machine. While arcade games have a standard size, a width, and a height, they vary a little bit, and I've organized my arcade so symmetrically they all look kind of the same height, same width. These 5 games are some of the original, although this is a classic arcade, these are the most classics you're going to get. Starting, of course, with Space Invaders. Just have a look at the screen on the Space Invaders. You'll never see a picture as clear as that, with the black-blue light, with the green bases, with the sound. Probably one of the coolest games of all time. Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man. After the huge success of Pac-Man, and when I mean the worldwide success of Pac-Man, it's still probably one of the most popular games today. Here's this mint Pac-Man, exactly the way it was in 1980. Absolutely pristine. They released this Pac-Man several years later. I've got a chip that speeds it up so that Pac-Man moves a lot faster. Makes the game a lot more interesting. You have the regular speed Pac-Man and the super speed Miss Pac-Man. Again, one of the favorite games. People lined up all day to play Pac-Man. You would go to an arcade and you couldn't fit quarters in anymore because there was thousands of quarters just jamming the game up and coming out. They couldn't empty the thing fast enough. Galaga, again, one of the coolest machines to come to the arcade. Once you played this game, you were hooked. It was part 2 of a game called Galaxian, but this one was a lot more fluent, a lot more advanced, just actually unbelievable. And then one of the coolest games ever, Cuber. It took me a long time to get this one, a real long time. I actually just got it, and I couldn't be happy. I finally got it in my arcade. One of the coolest machines ever. Right?
Yeah, it's better.
A few more cool games. Atari Tempest. Again, a game that I wanted for a long time. I actually just got it as well. Just an absolutely cool game. The design of the game, the graphics, and the overall sounds. Just a very cool machine. Here's a 4-player Gauntlet 2. When Gauntlet came out, it took the arcade by storm. 4 people could play at a time. You go on a journey. You feed in coins to get health. And as long as you stay healthy and not get people just fed quarters. And I've heard from several people that owned arcade, it was one of the highest money makers for an arcade owner. Just because it just continued and people just wanted to keep going level after level and play on. As you can see in my arcade, I have a bar area. There's no alcohol here, just a lot of candies. The same candies I ate when I was a kid. Most arcades either sold these bulk food or there was a place outside, and if you had an extra 5 or 10 cents, you could buy a little scoop. Well, I've gone to Bulk Bar and I've filled up all these things. It's never ending. Eat as much as you want. Another very cool thing I have in my arcade are classic slot machines. These slot machines are from real casinos across the United States. They actually, some of them have the names. They're either on cruise ships or in casinos. All these machines have been replaced by video slot machines, which are obviously very cool. But the classics, you can't beat them. The sound of the money going in, the sound of the squeaking dial, and of course the sound of you losing your money. As a kid, if you wanted to play video games, a lot of times the video games were in pool halls. So you'd go to the pool hall to play video games, and you always saw the older guys playing pool. And as you got about 14, 15, you're probably old enough that you could finally reach the pool table and play some pool. So naturally I started playing pool. And if you see my other video on YouTube, King of the Carnival, you'll see that I played a few games of pool in my day.
Everybody's doing it.
For me, collecting classic arcade games is not only an amazing hobby, but incredibly, I can still remember 40 years later exactly where I played each and every game. Today with the internet, collecting and maintaining these games has become much easier. I plan on expanding my collection even further, as I truly have had a passion for these games since I was 10 years old.